So we're going to create another method, and this will be called when we click the activities button. So as I said before, what I like to do is I like to put methods that are going to be called down at the bottom of the code set so that they're separate from the activities that take place in the event-driven programming side of things, where we call events when we click buttons. Just my way of doing things. Doesn't make it right, doesn't make it wrong, but I think it certainly helps me to separate the things in the code module. So this one is going to be called harvest data. Now we use the word harvest when we're taking data off an interface. It's a tradition. Doesn't mean to say that it's the right word to use, and I think you would understand what I mean by it. Harvest means gather. So we're going to say that we've got a method that's going to be harvesting the data off our interface. Now it's a private method because I don't need to call it from anywhere other than inside this particular module. And then with this time, what I'm going to get from the method that when it's completed is a person. Now our person is going to conform to all of the things that we need for a person. And that's the framework. So that's the signature. So let's just remind ourselves what happens in a person. A person has a name, an age, and a weight. Yeah, a rate. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to make sure that we harvest a person when we click the buttons. Right, so I'll start to code that now, and I'm going to copy stuff off the clipboard and go through it line. In fact, I've just realized that that should be weight. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to put prop row, and I'm going to return a float. Rate doesn't make any sense at all. It won't hurt that it's there. In fact, no, we might as well just take it out actually. So what we need to do is we need to make sure that that is all compiled into the application. So I'm going to save all, and that should make sure that it's available for us in that. So sorry about that. So right, let's just close this one down again. So I don't know whether when we created the person in the videos we made weight or rate. I can't remember. Right, so in our harvest data method here, which is going to be something that we call from the activities button, as I said, I need some local variables that we're going to use to control the way in which the method works, and I'll talk these through. So these are data handlers, and I've got a temp person, which is what we hold while we're making the person we want to return when we return the method. Then count of valid fields is currently 0. And then the required valid fields is 3, because we need data for all of those 3 items so that we can do the job we've got to do. Though, as I said before, we don't actually use the age and the weight when we actually make the application. So what we're going to do is we're going to create what is called a try catch. And a try catch is a construct that helps us to pick up errors when we meet them, and it's very professional programming. What we want to do in every place that we can, we want to, if we see an error, we want to handle it. Unhandled errors are the enemy of all software development, and luckily in the IntelliSense, in the code snippets that are built into Visual Studio, I get that. So that's really good. So what that will happen is that if it tries to run this code, and if it finds any errors, it throws the exception. And we're just going to leave it at that, because we're showing off. We're showing off to the markers and the moderators that we've got sophisticated code, because we don't actually use the throw event, although we could capture the throw event and then handle it in different ways depending on what type of error we get. So let's go through the bits of the code that we're going to run inside this try-catch block. Let's call that a try-catch block. So the first thing we want to do is to handle the person's name. Right. So what we're saying that is if not string is null or empty. Which string? The string that you find in person name textbox.text. So there's a lot wrapped up in that single line of code, and it's really nice code. It's really nice code that we could say would take 2 or 3 lines if you were a little bit more careless about how you write it. So if it's not empty, what we can do is we can take our temp person, and their person name will become whatever is in that text box. We then do counter valid fields plus 1. So that's the increment. Plus equals, it means plus equals 1. It means add 1 to whatever the value is at the moment, which was 0, and we've just increased it to 1. So if this is null or empty, it says to the user, you must enter a name. Not happy. You need to tell me what the name is, or I can't do anything with it. So we can go to the same and do the same with the other 2 text items that we need to gather. So here's the same with age. I'm not going to bother to explain it, apart from there's one thing here. So what was 1 before now becomes 2 because it has 2 valid fields. So that's a way of tracking things, and it's a bit crude, but it works really well for making sure that if you're going to process data, you have all the data that you need before you process it. So final field is the weight. So we've now validated that we have data to work with. We've populated the temp person with all of the 3 data fields, and we've set the number of valid fields to 1 again, more than it was before. So now what we can do now is process this data, and what we'll process it is we'll process it underneath that catch, because we know we've got the data we want, so we can now process it and give us the values we want. So if the count of valid fields, which was raised by 1 here, is equal to the required fields, which is 3, oops, we say form data valid is true, which is a module wide variable up here. There. So it sets the form data valid to true and then returns temp person. And the last thing we do is make sure we return temp person to completely return this method, which was set to return a person. So that's the harvest data method. Okay, everything's now in place for all of the methods and things that we need, so that when the activity button is clicked, that the data can all be processed. So obviously that's the click event for the data, for the activities button, and we put this processing inside here. Now actually it's very simple because of the modular approach that we've taken. So I'm just going to get this off my clipboard, or sorry, copy it to my clipboard and then paste it in. So this is it. So we say that should be harvest data. I changed the name for consistency. So we've got don't worry about that, I'll fix that in a minute. We've got this var. We're going to have a person data, which is going to be a person returned by harvest data. Then if form data is valid, we say we want a new page activity that is going to be sent this person data, and that's why it's complaining at the moment. It's because in the page activity I haven't set up a constructor that would take a person data object as yet, but we can do that in just a moment. And then finally we navigate to the next page. So we use the navigation service that's built into WPF. So this.navigation service.navigate where page activity, which we defined as a new page activity. Now This is one of the great benefits of using Pages in WPF, because this is all built in, this navigation service is built in, so we don't have to worry about setting up pages and setting navigation pathways up and all sorts of things and all sorts of troubles that can be caused. Dead easy. So what I'm going to do in a minute is I'm going to go to page activity and just fix this little bit here, and it's actually where we'll be going next anyway, so we might as well get ahead with that. So this is the current state of page activity, and as you can see it has one constructor there, which is the constructor for the page. It makes the page build, and it takes all of the XAML code and all of the code behind and builds it into the ones and zeros that are going to run as an executable. So what we need is we need to have a constructor that will allow us to pass a person. So I'm going to create it as a new constructor. We'll leave this one here for a minute, and I'm just going to paste it in. Control V, and if I save that, let's not worry about this just at the moment because we have to fix this in a minute. At least this constructor is here. If I go back to PagePerson activity, no complaint. It says, okay, I know you've got a constructor in the other module that's going to take a person, so that fixes that. So our page person is finished, and we go on to the biggie, which is page activity, and I think the code behind in that's going to take 3 or 4 videos. Don't know quite yet. I'm planning them out as I speak, and I think it's going to be 4 just for safety. I'm pretty sure it'll be 4, and I think I'll aim for shorter and more frequent, or say more of than we've got sometimes with some of the videos. I don't like it when they go too long.